Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Brian. Today we are breaking down all of the Arizona Cardinals selections from the 2024 NFL Draft. They had a bunch of selections, and we thought that they did a great job. So it's going to be fun reviewing all these for y'all, and leave a comment. Let us know what your favorite pick was. But before we get into the breakdown, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also tackle the bell to get notified when new Cardinals videos come out by the Tracy Take. We're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the start of the NFL Draft, so any help is greatly appreciated between now and then. So, Ryan, let's pull up their slides here. So, already starting off, this is a great draft when Marvin Harrison Jr. is your selection here. So, there was back and forth, at least from some Cardinals fans in our comments, saying that they're going to trade back or like Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a waste of a pick. It's not what they're going to do. And maybe you're right in a lot of situations, but I think that we believe that they got this right. Marvin Harrison Jr. You just can't pass them up.
I am a firm believer that they are not right. To me, passing up on Marvin Harrison Jr. it would have been absurd. If he's a miss, I mean, 100% of the draft community got it wrong.
It's kind of like when Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow or even like Caleb Williams. I feel like it's kind of in that same category of like, if this guy's a bust, it's not your fault. Everybody would have done it. But then it's like, it's one of those, if you trade back and you didn't get him and it was so obvious, dude, you're fired immediately. Even if the guy you selected was good, it's like, no, you missed out on this guy. And so I think it's just too obvious. And then too, with the team now, when they moved on from Hollywood Brown, moved on from Rondell Moore. Yes, they have Michael Wilson, they have Greg Dortch, they still have Trey McBride as well. Still have James Conner in the backfield, but they had a great addition that we're going to get to here in a second. It just made too much sense. This is a guy that you can kind of build your whole offense around. That's just how freaking good he is. And so, but great selection in our opinion here, Marvin Harrison Jr. Not only too much to talk about, we've talked about him so much. I think what's interesting is going to be their next. Well, the rest of their picks, because they had so many in this class. And so coming in here at 27, Darius Robinson. We put defensive tackle, I think, on ESPN. It says edge. It's interesting now because I was thinking about this. He's a tweener. There's like this transition in the edge rushers now. There's like the modern day outside linebacker, like the TJ Watt, Will Anderson-esque. I think there's now this transition of this defensive tackles as well. I feel like Darius Robinson 10 years ago would be a stereotypical defensive end, so in like a 4-3 technique, because he's
6'5", 285.
6'5", 285. So that's like a traditional defensive end, I feel like, from 10, 15, 20 years ago. Now they played more on the inside because of like how freaking athletic the guys are on the outside, the Micah Parsons-esque, those 245-pound outside linebackers. So I think he's going to provide a lot of versatility, I think, for this Cardinals offense. You can move him all around the defensive line as well. Very similar to how you can move around these edge rushers all around defense. Like you could put him, you have him drop back into coverage, or you can have a blitz. So I think it's interesting now how the defensive line positions are evolving to kind of fit the modern day game. I think Darius Robinson is a good selection here, maybe a little higher than what we would have gone. But also, too, they had so many selections. They were picking at 35. They were scheduled to pick at 35. And so you have so many selections. I think if there's just a guy that you want, just go and get him, because you're picking 15 picks later.
Yeah, exactly. And so speaking of about 15 picks later, Max Melton, the cornerback from Rutgers, came off the board here. I thought this one of all their picks was probably the biggest reach. There's another one that I we'll say here a little bit later, but I thought he was a fringe day 2 guy. So to take him this early on day 2 was a little bit surprising for me. But with that being said, he is a really athletic corner that has a lot of upside. I just feel like there needs to be some development in his game, and especially with the cornerbacks that were on the board at 27 and at their could have moved up from here with all of this draft capital. I feel like they really could have, selected a guy that's a little bit more highly touted than this.
I think that's a fair point, because both at 27 and at 35, guys like Cooper DeJean, Quillen McKinstry, and even Kamari Lassiter were still available. I'm actually even curious then too, did Mike Sandstorm, was he also in that range as well? He came a little bit later. He came a little bit later. But to your point, though, it's like I would put Cooper DeJean and Quillen McKinstry higher than Max Melton, easily. Just with their overall versatility, especially a guy like Cooper DeJean, just with his ball skills, and so for them to pass him up on 27 and then trade back him on 35 and then miss out on him and then take Max Melton. To your point, was probably higher. This was taken sooner than I think a lot of people had him on their board. So I think that's actually a fair point. I do still like the player. I think a good overall development piece, but yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you make. Just missing out on all these guys. It's almost like they panicked just because there's 3 cornerbacks taken off the board. And like, shoot, we got to take a corner here. Just make sure that we can address this position. Yeah. So that's okay. I think with this here, they once again with so many picks, I think they definitely got it right here on the next pick. Getting Trey Benson, getting your running back for the future here. James Conner, still one of the best running backs in the league, but he is turning 28 or 29. Just on the other side of the other side of his prime, so to say.
Yeah.
I think you get a guy like Trey Benson here, great value, about where we thought that he would go. So even too during our mock drafts, this was just kind of penciled in. This felt like a good spot for a running back to come off the board.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say just the overall team need, and then also just how he complements James Conner, and I think he can develop into that every down back for the Cardinals over the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I think too, like this is kind of like the top part of where I felt these running backs really going to start trickling off the board. So I like that pick there. I think good value, and he's going to be a versatile asset for them for at least throughout his rookie contract, if not beyond that. So they do have a lot of picks. So let's move on now to the next one here. Isaiah Adams getting an interior offensive lineman. They did get Jonah Williams in free agency. They drafted Paris Johnson last year, as I'm sure many Cardinals fans are aware. So solidifying the interior of that offensive line is going to be a pretty good thing for them. So I did think this one was also a little bit of a reach. However, there were a ton of offensive linemen that were flying off the board in the second and early third round. So I don't really fault anybody here for taking the offensive lineman that you like. I do just think that this was a bit of a reach, especially when you look 2 picks later. Cooper Beebe was on the board, and I had him ranked a little bit higher.
I was about to say I had Cooper Beebe higher, but at the same time, though, too, it's how they're going to have on their board the stuff that they see, what their scouts see. So we'll have kind of the wait and see. I do like though that they address the interior of the offensive line. I think they're set for the time being with the tackle position. To get as much improvement on the interior, opening up running lanes for James Conner and also Trey Benson, protecting Kyler Murray as much as possible is going to be crucial for the season.
One thing with offensive linemen is I feel like it's going to be very unique to the system that you are running, and specifically like what offensive line coach you have and just how they're going to coach those guys up. So I think of all the positions, offensive line is probably the one that's most up in the air for like draft grades. Let's move on now to, I believe, their third round pick, and Tip Ryman, the tight end from Illinois. This is the other one that I kind of look at and I was like, I see where they're going with this pick. I just don't necessarily know that I agree with it because Tip Ryman, 6'7", 270, primarily a blocking tight end with some upside. I know he ran a fast 40 at the combine, so you can come at me and say, oh, he is a good athlete. But I think you watch it on tape, he lacks that twitch that you really want from guys that can separate. Not the most fluid receiver, not the most fluid with the ball in his hands. He is just more of an inline, like true Y blocking tight end. So
I think then just to how I envision it, like maybe it's a little early for him. Like I can understand that, but if we're talking about the scheme fit though, Trey McBride is that now modern day tight end, like that slot tight end guy that all these teams are trying to look for. And even something similar to like what Vegas did getting Brock Bowers. And I think Brock Bowers is the Cardinals' Trey McBride. And then Michael Mayer is going to be more of that wide tight end that you're talking about. I think that's what Tip Ryman is going to do here. So absolutely could see a scenario, though, where you have Marvin Harrison Jr. across from Michael Wilson, and then in the slot's going to be Trey McBride, and you have Tip Ryman here as lining up as a normal tight end. Help out with more run blocking, I think provides a lot more versatility overall on the offensive side. More, it could be a run play, pass play, calling out a lot more potential audibles or options, depending on what the defense is giving you. So I think it gives them variety as well, with still some good blocking capabilities. This is about where we saw, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is about where we saw Darnell Washington come off the board last year.
He came off at the top of the fourth.
Top of the fourth. Okay, so a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but still very similar type scheme. Just a huge tight end guy that's going to potentially probably be a red zone threat at some point, but primarily he's going to be in there for blocking, help out with blocking schemes. So I can understand your point about if you're going for the position overall. He's just that different kind of tight end, which is maybe why it is. You're probably correct. Maybe this is a little early for him.
Yeah. I do feel like that type of tight end has kind of slowly been phased out of the game. I think we see tight ends that are actually getting smaller and smaller, hence the rise of Brock Bowers. So let's move on to their final third-round pick here, which is Elijah Jones, the cornerback out of Boston College. Good length, good athlete. Not one of my personal favorite prospects, but I think this is kind of where people had him going off the board here as well. So, again, I think just you identify a guy you like, you go get him, and here you go.
Yeah, so just in the secondary again here, I think this is about maybe the spot that we thought Max Melton will be coming off the board. But you go get Elijah Jones here, just another solid cornerback. Just get some more bodies in there. Just keep testing them out, guys that could try and find your system. So in general, very active. I think just looking at the top 100, like 7 picks alone, this is already probably about as many picks as a lot of teams had in the draft. And so they still have about 5 or 6 more. But in general, I really like how they kind of had a good diverse spread across the top 100 picks and 7 that they had. I agree. I disagree with a couple of them, but still I think solid players. Yeah. Let's move on now to their day 3 picks, though. Starting off with Dadarian Taylor Demerson, safety out of, I'm pretty sure it's TCU, right? No, Texas
Tech. Texas Tech, yeah. Right state.
Right state. I was close enough. And so, and then Xavier Thomas, edge rusher, focusing on the defensive side of the ball. I think Jonathan Gannon's really looking just to get as many bodies in there as possible, see which of these young guys are obviously that he thinks are going to fit their system on film, but then put them in practice and see which ones rise to the top. And just create as much competition as possible.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I think all these guys can come in and add good depth. I will say with how many picks is this?
They have 12.
12 picks. That's already going to be a lot of depth and a lot of people to compete with, especially I think in an environment where competition and I don't want to say trying hard is the place, but you look at last year and the Cardinals were one of those teams that they just put in so much effort and they just lacked talent. And
on paper, they were probably one of the worst teams last year on paper.
But they were never an easy out, even in week 16, 17, 18.
Oh, yeah. Super fun to watch. I mean, they just tried so hard.
I really like this team. They've now identified players that that is the one thing. So I slightly, and we'll get into grades here in a second, but I slightly disagree with some of the picks. But it's not like the Cardinals looked at it and was like, well, I don't want to move back in because maybe this person won't make it to my next pick. It's like they had 7 in the top 100. They could move up and down pretty much at will. And these are the guys that they focused on getting. So all in all, I think they did a really good job this draft. So let's get into our grades here. I gave them a B+. You gave them an A-. I will say, especially after kind of talking through this with you, I do feel like maybe I would be a little bit higher on them than just a B+. But B+ for me is above average. They had a lot of picks. I didn't necessarily like some of the players. I felt it was high for Darius Robinson, Max Melton, Tip Ryman, but those were guys that they really identified as guys they wanted a part of their organization.
Yeah, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. alone makes it an A-. I think what keeps it an A- is they got a lot of great guys. I think they had a very good diverse spread of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which I think where they needed the most amount. I think the issue to me, though, was, as we kind of already discussed, I think they missed out on some opportunities here potentially. And so even at 35, Cooper DeJean sitting there, and now you trade back with Atlanta, and then you pick up that extra third. Then you trade back again from that spot because the Colts want to trade up to 79. But you missed out on Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and heck, even Kamari Lassiter as well, which I would have ranked them higher. And I think, and so a couple of those situations happened where you still got a good player, but I felt like there were better players on the board at that time. So that's what kind of keeps it at an A- for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, they got a ton of good players in this draft, and you have to, like, if you're a Cardinals fan, you have to be happy with it because I think that they're gonna. I mean, they're going to be more competitive and more talented this year than they were last year.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Arizona Cardinals 2024 draft class. And on that, we will see you guys next time.